I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead.
And welcome back to the show, where we're going to try to keep you as balanced as possible with everything that's happening here in the United States and around the globe. So let's go ahead and start with one of the hottest topics out there today, Venezuela. Venezuela is currently undergoing one of the worst crises in the country's history. Mass migration, inflation, and criminal networks that have their hands completely embedded in the political system. Now, the Trump administration has taken a very aggressive stance when it comes to the drug boats that are carrying massive loads of cocaine coming into the country that are leaving out of Venezuela. There have been at least 50 intercepts or destruction of drug boats coming here from the Venezuelan coast and from that part of the region. President Trump has taken a serious stance when it comes to taking down these organized criminal organizations or narco-terrorists that continue to flood our streets with drugs that last year alone cost about 76,000 overdose deaths. Take a look at what the president recently said about our actions against these criminal organizations.
I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead.
Now, if you think Trump is trigger happy, he's not the only one that's applauding his actions. Listen to Maria Corina Machado talk about what she believes needs to change for Venezuela to finally prosper.
President Trump with a stern warning to the drug cartels during a roundtable meeting with the Homeland Security Task Force on Thursday. He will kill you. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has ordered the USS Gerald Ford and its strike group to the waters off of South America to bolster President Trump's efforts to destroy all boats allegedly carrying illegal and deadly narcotics marked for the United States. Meanwhile, the Pentagon confirmed the U.S. military destroyed a Tren de Aragua boat in the Caribbean that was suspected of trafficking illegal narcotics into America. It marks the 10th strike on suspected drug boats since September, as Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is now pleading with the United States not to engage in what he is calling, quote, a crazy war. In August, the Justice Department announced it was offering a $50 million reward, leading to the arrest and conviction of Maduro on drug trafficking charges. Joining me now with more on President Trump's battle with drug traffickers from Mexico and Venezuela is Maduro opposition leader and 2025 Nobel Peace Prize winner, Maria Corina Machado. Maria, thanks very much for being here, and congratulations on the Nobel Peace Prize.
Thank you very much, Maria.
I want to get your take on these boats blowing up. The U.S. is meeting these boats with fire. Do you believe that Maduro is running the Venezuelan end of this?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody knows Maduro is the head of the biggest cartel, drug cartel, Cartel of the Suns, also the head of the Tren de Aragua, a criminal network that has committed crimes in the US, in Canada, up down to Argentina and Chile. It's all run by Maduro. He has been destroying the lives of millions of Venezuelan people and turned our country into the safe haven for Russian, Iranian forces, Cuban agents, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Colombian guerrilla to operate freely for 26 years.
Wow. What do you think should be done about this? Do you agree with President Trump's tact to just blow up these boats as they approach America?
Look, the only way to dismantle a criminal structure is to cut their inflows of criminal money. You have to cut the resources that come from drug trafficking, gold smuggling, arms smuggling, even human trafficking that Maduro heads and operates from Venezuela. It was Maduro who declared a war on us Venezuelans after we won by a landslide in a presidential election last year. So he has applied state terrorism inside towards our people and narco-terrorism abroad to the nations of the Western Hemisphere. So Maduro is the one who started the war. President Trump is stopping the war, ending the war.
So there you have it. That's coming straight from the horse's mouth. That's coming from people that are on the ground going through it right now. The opposition won that election last year, fair and square, by an overwhelming majority. But Maduro continues to hold his grip on power. And that's mostly done through the funding that he gets from narco-terrorism. But ultimately, the change needs to happen from within. The Venezuelan people need to rise up and oust Maduro out of power. Now, with this massive buildup, it may be that we assist the opposition party in ousting Maduro and finally getting regime change. But don't expect troops on the ground anytime soon in Venezuela. I completely predict that Venezuela is going to be a very prosperous country, especially given the fact that it has the largest oil reserves in the world. Venezuela currently boasts over 300 billion barrels of oil. If you want to compare that to a different country that's prosperous with less oil, just compare Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia only has about 267 billion barrels of oil, and they are very prosperous. Since we like to keep everything balanced, let's hear what CNN had to say about the current situation in Venezuela.
A dramatic U.S.-led escalation in the Caribbean, what the Navy calls the largest warship ever built, along with fighter jets, heading to the waters off Latin America. The administration claims the goal is to stop international drug traffickers. The provocative move Breaking news, a dramatic U.S.-led escalation in the Caribbean, what the Navy calls the largest warship ever built, along with fighter jets, heading to the waters off Latin America. The administration claims the goal is to stop international drug traffickers. The provocative move comes as the Pentagon announced another overnight strike on a suspected drug boat. The 10th strike in 52 days, at least 43 people killed in total. And President Trump telling reporters these attacks may just be the tip of the iceberg.
I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay, we're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead.
However, the longer this thing extends out, the more opposition you're going to start seeing from all different directions. Listen to this.
And CNN is reporting tonight that the president is considering plans to target cocaine facilities inside Venezuela. Now, the lack of transparency about these plans, especially the deadly attacks on alleged drug boats, have an increasing number of Republicans doing something they don't do much these days, criticizing the Trump White House.
The administration needs to give insight into Congress. That's part of it. If this was happening with this level of insight under the Biden administration, I'd be apoplectic.
Senator Langford is absolutely right. If this was happening in the other direction, Republicans will be going absolutely crazy right now. So I think that it's in the best interest of the Trump administration to keep Congress informed on what's happening. Is it going to make things a lot more difficult? Is he going to be scrutinized even more? Yes. But if he hopes to maintain support from all sides, I think he needs to keep Congress informed. Now, the president has the ability to do whatever he wants given the War Powers Act, so he's got all the freedom that he needs. The only outcome from him keeping Congress and the Senate informed is that he gains more support from the American people because of the transparency. Now, let's listen to a little bit more from Fareed Zakaria, who I used to actually listen to often back in the day before CNN became so biased.
So good to see you. What do you think, let's start in the Caribbean, where I just left off. What do you think of this massive military buildup? Is it really about drug trafficking or about trying to force regime change in Venezuela, or both?
Dana, you're focusing on the right issue. It is a massive buildup and a massive escalation. Look, we probably now have more troops in that area, in that region, the Caribbean and Latin America, naval troops than at any point since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Wow.
You're talking about 10,000 American troops, 9 major carriers. And it is unclear what the purpose is, because the ostensible purpose, as you say, is all about drugs. Mm-hmm. But as one of your previous guests was saying, Venezuela is not the font of all the drug trafficking coming into the United States. Mm-hmm. It's a terrible regime, make no mistake, and Maduro is a terrible guy. But if this is an effort at regime change, it would be very important to have thought through the entire sequence of events that are going to take place, how this is going to work out. Donald Trump, in many ways, came to power breaking with Republican orthodoxy by pointing out that the Iraq war had been a fiasco, by pointing out that the Libyan intervention had been a fiasco. He had been initially, in very Donald Trump-like way, he had been in favor of the intervention, sort of, and then when it turned sour, he said the Libyan intervention was a mistake and Gaddafi should have stayed in power. All of which is to just say, if there is a move toward regime change, if this is some kind of a quiet or escalating war to get Maduro out of power, you'd want to have thought through the day after, the week after, the month after, because Venezuela could easily collapse into chaos.
And I want to stop it right there because I want to make something clear. Venezuela is not a major producer of illicit drugs. Most of its drugs come from Colombia, who produces over 70% of the world's cocaine. So when the United States talks about destroying production systems within Venezuela, these are most possibly the places where all of these get processed once they enter the country. If we really want to stop the production of cocaine and its entry into the United States, we need to take a look at the bigger problem, Colombia. Remember, Colombia produces over 70% of the world's cocaine, and Venezuela's relationship with Colombia goes way back to the previous administration when Hugo Chavez established a tremendous relationship between his administration and the FARC. The FARC currently produces about 30 to 40% of the cocaine in Colombia, with the Clan of the Gulf producing about 40 to 50%. So if we want to stop production, we need to look for ways to stop it within Colombia. I think Fareed is wrong here. President Trump is not looking to start any war. He's looking to end wars. As a matter of fact, he's ended 8 in the first 8 months of his administration. I think the power move here from the Trump administration is to utilize the opposition party on the ground to make their moves. I think worst case scenario, if the United States gets involved in Venezuela, the extent of that is going to be airstrikes, precision airstrikes, to support the opposition party in overthrowing the Maduro government. Remember, the United States of America has the greatest weapons on the face of the earth. And if we would have wanted Maduro out of there already, we would have had him out. But that is not the way to do it. Remember, President Trump is a transactional leader. What's in it for us? And in the long run, if the opposition party takes power, of course that's going to affect our economy, because that means that we're going to increase our imports of oil into the country. So it puts us in a very great position to reduce our energy costs. Look, the bottom line is this. These cartels are ruthless, and we need to do everything that we can to get rid of them, not just for our sake, but for the rest of the world as well. Now, there are some people out there that actually question the brutality of these cartels. If you want to hear what they're all about, listen to the DNI talk about some of the cartel members they've captured.
The arrest of a Sinaloa cartel boss, El Plato, another dangerous Sinaloa cartel member responsible for tracking a huge amounts of cocaine. The arrest of a CJNG cartel-affiliated baby trafficker called La Diabla. Her whole money-making operation was centered around luring pregnant women, performing illegal C-sections, harvesting organs, and selling newborn babies.
Listen, from my experience, I had the privilege of actually working against some of these cartels during the FARC's first run when they were at war with the Colombian government for over 40 years. On 2 separate missions, I flew down to Colombia and helped train special forces units to engage in operations against the FARC. I can tell you that these guys are ruthless. They would rape little girls, they would steal young boys to join their ranks, and they would murder, kill, and maim the farmers who refused to work with them. So yes, we need to get rid of these guys. Now let's move on to the next topic that affects us all as Americans, the government shutdown. Let's listen to what the Democrats are saying about the government shutdown.
It's not complicated. Americans want it. Republican voters want it. Democrats remain ready and willing to work with the other side. We're ready to work on a path forward to lower health care costs for the American people and fund the federal government.
It's all about President Trump and the Democrats needing to pick a fight to satisfy their far-left political base, far-left activist organizations who are the tail wagging the dog right now. That's all this is about.
Yes, the two parties are still bickering with one another while we suffer as Americans. But what you're starting to see is a couple of more Republicans start to get frustrated with the Trump administration. And rightfully so. Remember, as a politician, your job is to protect the citizens within your state. And when you have massive firings, that's not happening. So, of course, the politicians are going to start pushing back against the Trump administration, whether you're a Republican or Democrat.
But Kristen, let me start with you because we've been hearing some rumblings of some Republican opposition to what the White House is doing in terms of cutting funding to blue states. What's your latest reporting on this?
Yeah, cutting funding to blue states, but also some pushback when it comes to these mass layoffs. Now, I do want to be very clear here. This is not some kind of wave that we're seeing in terms of Republicans. Yet largely, we're seeing them be united. But this is the first kind of cracks that we're seeing. One of the things, again, being this halt in funding to blue cities. We've now seen the White House halt federal funding to both New York and Chicago for various projects. Obviously, this seems punitive. We heard from Senator Susan Collins, Tom Tillis, Lisa Murkowski, all saying that this is a bad idea. It's not something they should do. And Tillis going a little bit further, actually saying that this could prolong this shutdown, have Democrats double down.
Look, I'll be honest with you. I think the Democrats are digging a huge hole for themselves, especially for voting not to pay our troops or essential personnel within the government. And that includes air traffic control. I just recently read an article where air traffic controllers are having to look for second jobs. I think the frustrating part about this is that the continuing resolution should have been passed. Fund the government for the next couple of weeks until you guys can sit down and discuss policy and ultimately come to an agreement. But once again, I think that troops should have been paid, essential personnel like ATC, air traffic controllers should have been paid, and other government officials that are considered critical to the operation of our country. The bill introduced by Senator Johnson from Wisconsin that sought to pay our troops and other essential personnel did not pass. Even though that bill didn't pass, that was going to pay our troops and fund our air traffic controllers and other critical personnel that are very important to the function of our government, it's at least, good that we are seeing them discuss making some modifications to their proposals to see if they can come to an agreement. However, they need to stop dragging their feet on this, especially since the family assistance programs, in particular SNAP, are going to run out of funding on November 1st. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I think Republicans are making a big mistake not taking money from other areas and pushing it into these food assistance programs. Not having these benefits would be absolutely devastating to a lot of families here in the United States. As we've all seen on the news, food banks are overwhelmed at this point in preparation for this. And as the greatest country in the world, this is just not right. I think we need to do better than this. Just because of this particular issue, we need to put partisan politics aside and understand who's actually going to be affected by this. It's the American families. And we cannot stand for this. We should not stand for this. So let's talk about the next story of the day, which has absolutely no significance, but apparently the press is absolutely obsessed with: the building of the ballroom at the White House. Now, before I show you a clip on this, I want you guys to understand the purpose of building this ballroom. Previously, before the construction of this ballroom started, whenever we had dignitaries or we had big galas or world leaders come here and expected a large number of guests, we used to erect tents on the South Lawn. Tents. As the greatest country in the world, as the most powerful country in the world, we were erecting tents. That cannot happen. We need something grandiose. We need something huge, something that world leaders can come to and understand the country that they're in. But for some reason, the press continues to be obsessed with the ballroom.
Can the president tear down anything he wants without oversight? Could he demolish this building or say the Jefferson Memorial?
Is the president looking at any other renovations or significant kind of projects here at the White House?
This is the people's house. Why not inform the public of that change and when it was decided that the East Wing would have to be demolished?
Look, again, with any construction project, changes come. And we have informed all of you. The East, well, again, the president, the plans changed when the president heard counsel from the architects and the construction companies who said that in order for this East Wing to be modern and beautiful for many, many years to come, for it to be a truly strong and stable structure, this phase one that we're now in was necessary. And the president wants to do right by the people's house. And so that's exactly what he's doing.
I'll reiterate what I said before. We used to erect tents to host world leaders. The United States of America used to erect tents in the South Lawn in order to host world leaders. Is that really the look that we want? The worst part about this is that the media is making it sound like he's the first president in the history of the White House to make changes. Remember, we like to keep things balanced here, so take a look at the previous presidents who made changes to the White House, some of them significant.
All right, so a long history of renovations at the White House. You can take a look at what some of the past presidents have done. And I mean, you see some of the same places that are being redone right now have been done before. The White House dating back hundreds of years. And here is Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin.
There's a long list of presidents that have done this over the years. The only thing is the difference between when they did it and what's happening now is the president in the White House is actually funding the majority of the renovation, and the rest of it is being paid by personal donors, not taxpayers.
Remember, the president is only there for 4 years. He has just a little over 3 years left. That is not just for him. It's for future leaders as well. You know, I think this would have been a really big deal if taxpayers were funding this, especially with the government shutdown. But that's not the case. President Trump is flipping the bill on this with the help of several other donors. And if you're curious on who these donors are, take a look at this clip.
Who's going to be paying this? Is there any taxpayer involvement?
That's right. So it's still unclear. So the initial figures was 250, and now, the figures have gone up to 300 million. And today, actually, the White House released the donor list to the Hill. It's up on our website. And, part of this donor list is major corporations as well as individuals. We know that Amazon is part of this. We know Meta is a part of this. We know there are military companies that are taking part in funding some of this project of the president's. And we also know that the president hosted a dinner last week where he hosted some of the people from these companies as well as donors to talk about the ballroom. He hosted a dinner, to thank them for giving him money to build this ballroom. So now the price tag has gone up to 300 million. And essentially it's a list of high net worth individuals who are funding this project, Drew.
I think these are the most significant stories that are currently affecting us as everyday Americans. Remember how this show works. I take a look at the news, I stay informed, I make sure I give you guys both sides, and that allows you to make better decisions when it comes to how you choose or who you choose as your politician. Until next time, stay balanced.